Hello, my name is Catherine Vanstone, and I'm going to have a conversation with Louis Narimatsu for Our Stories, Our Lives, an oral history project with the Georgia Libraries for Accessible Statewide Services. It is December 14th, 2018, and this is being recorded at the Georgia Industries for the Blind in Bainbridge, Georgia. So, Louis, what is your story?
First of all, I want to thank the library for considering me for this project. That's very interesting when I know how people lost their sight and their experiences in dealing with blindness. Um, I was born overseas in a little place called, little country called Panama. And if anybody knows anything about history, they know the United States went down there in 1903 to build a canal. So my dad was in the military in World War II, went to Korea, and then was stationed in Panama. So I was born overseas, born and raised in a little place called the Panama Canal Zone, run by the United States, and went to school and college down there, and uh, had two jobs. Was working for the military, had my own business, and going to college, and then I was a DJ, so worked late at night, came home in the morning, went to school, went to my other job, and did that every day for 3 or 4 years until I was studying accounting. My major was accounting, and I started noticing at night I started getting these headaches, and then when I drove at night, I started seeing halos around lights, when the cars, and started getting headaches. I'd wake up and go jogging I'm always been little big boy, so I used to go jogging at lunchtime, and I thought maybe going jogging, in the hot sun, and then the working night, and then these headaches, and then I started realizing I started needing more and more light to see spreadsheets when I was doing accounting homework. I needed, and one day I got home in the afternoon from work, and I decided I was gonna go lie down and take a nap, see if I can shake my headache. And when I woke up, I had no central vision. It was like if you're driving in a car and someone splatters soap suds on the windshield and they spread out. That's the way everything in the center was gone. Went to the eye doctor. They looked at me and they said, when I went there, my pressure in my eyes were um, 64 in one eye and 65 in the other. And if anybody knows anything about pressure in your eyes, the normal pressure of the eye should be around 12 to 14 to 16. That's normal pressure. I was up in the 60s. They diagnosed me with glaucoma. After a couple of studies, they realized that it was a strange form of glaucoma. It's glaucoma that's usually doesn't happen because glaucoma usually happens in older adults, not young. I was about 20, 21 years old when I was diagnosed. Came to the United States. My dad brought me right away to Miami to the Boston Palmer Eye Institute. Um, they did testing there. They they didn't want to do surgery on me because they said if they touched my eyes, they could just damage more than what it was already damaged. My doctor back in Panama told me, get ready, prepare yourself. You're going to go blind 5, 6, 10, 15 years, but you will go blind. Um, that was a rude awakening for me. They tell you you're going to lose your sight, and I was not going to be able to recover what I had lost. They had me on all kinds of medications to keep the pressure down. The pressure was under control, but the damage was already there, and it was going to be progressive. So there went my ability to drive. Um, my DJ musical job started to be affected because I wasn't able to, I was in charge of everything. I managed, I set up, I did the music, I everything, and I was not being able to do that. So um, it started to get tougher. You started to depend on all those friends that you had when you were famous and everybody liked you because you're a DJ. All of a sudden you didn't have those. All of a sudden they were busy, and then next week someone else was busy, and before you know it, um, they just want to tell you, no, I can't. I'm busy right now. I can't help you. So I went through that phase where my friends started disappearing little by little. People that would hang around me didn't want to hang around because I wasn't I wasn't cool anymore. I was the one that needed to be helping out. So um, that was very depressing. Um, Had to drop out of college for a bit. I did graduate, but after that I was trying to continue my studies, and that was tough. I was still trying to deal with the emotional issues of having three vehicles in my front yard, and I couldn't drive any of them. I think that was one of the toughest things, was to lose my independence. So that was tough. I got depressed, very depressed. Started, going less to less places, um, because I couldn't see well. I used to go to the clubs and hang out, and then I started to stop doing that because I used to bump into things and back play it off. I had not looked for um, any kind of a blindness skills training. I was trying to play it off like I could. I was low vision, legally blind, and I tried to play it off for a while, and that started getting bad, and bumping into things and knocking things over, and I just started um, just going into a little shell, to the point where I didn't leave my house very much. I just went around the neighborhood where I had a couple of friends who hung out with me, and that was it. Um, Got very, very depressed. You know, I considered a couple of times um, just calling it quits and ending it all right there, because I felt I wasn't, I wasn't, I felt I would never be myself again. And one day, I don't know, one day I woke up, and something came to me. So I said, you know what? I started thinking about all the people in the world who are blind and who are successful. And I said, how I want to be like them, but what do I do? So I just started looking for help. And when I put that in the hands of the good Lord and said, please, I need some help, and I put it in His hands, and all of a sudden, people started appearing in my life. Strangers started appearing in my life to help me out. The first one was the person who's my wife today. Um, out of a prank phone call that she was making with her friends one night, um, started a friendship, and I ended up telling her that I was vision impaired, and she helped me go to the United States Embassy and go to the library, and I started looking at places where I can get some rehab. And I wrote to. She helped me write a couple letters to people, to agencies up here in the states, to see who could help me get some rehabilitation. And a lot of these places went and referred me back to a little place back in Panama, out in the country. So I decided to give it a try. So I went to a center for adults, and for those who don't understand, outside of the military bases in Panama, we were talking about a country that back in then was like a third world country. So, and this rehab center was out of the center of the city. It was out in the country, um, and people that went there were a lot of people from blind people that from the country, people that they cook with wood stoves. They don't have electricity. They don't have iron. So big rehabilitation consisted of learning how to cook using wood stoves, ironing with back in the old 1800s, where you iron with that big old giant iron that you heat up over the stove. Learn how to do that. But I think the biggest thing I got out of there was learning how to be independent with a cane. That was my biggest gift they gave me, and I was able to. They taught me how to use a cane, how to get around with the cane, and that was for me. That when I was able to use that cane, that opened so many doors. I finally learned to embrace my blindness, and know that, and started seeing that it could be blindness could be my asset, could be something that was helpful for me, instead of, as I thought, something that was holding me back. It actually could open doors for me. Um, After that, I went back home. My dad got really sick. I had to go back home and help my mom take care of him. He was in the hospital. My sisters came down. And my brothers, all my siblings were living in the States. I was the only one still living in Panama with my parents. And so when my dad passed away, in May. That December, my brother came down to see me, and he brought me a computer. And he goes, "Here, Lewis, I brought your computer for you to use." And I sat there and I looked at him and I smiled. I go, "That's great, but how am I going to use it? I can't see the screen." And he goes, "Well, we'll figure something out." My brother was one of those computer whizzes. Back in the '80s, he came up with stuff, um, and he managed to rig that computer up so when I touched the letters on a keyboard, it would say something. I thought, "Well, that's nice, but how am I going to be able to use it to apply to other things that I used to do before?" My sister was living in the States, and one day she called me and she said, "Lewis, I went to the library and I saw this guy. He's blind and he was using a computer. You want me to talk to him and ask him what he uses?" And I said, "Please do." And so she did. And he told her, "Well, tell him to call me." And she relayed that I'm in Panama overseas. I don't have no work. I don't have no money. I don't have the money to make a phone call. That's back then. You had to pay for those phone calls. You didn't have cell service or anything like that. And he said, "Well, don't worry. Tell him to call me. He collects." And I did. And he was living in Ohio, and he told me, "What do you want to do on a computer?" I go, "Everything I used to do before." One of my backgrounds in college was accounting and computers, so I was learning how to program and stuff like that on computers back in the old days when computers were just coming out. And he goes, "Okay, I'll tell you what. I have a friend that lives in Florida, and I'm gonna ask him to see how we can help you out." And he talked to his friend. He goes, "Call me back in about a week," and I did. He goes, "I talked to my friend in Florida. He is very excited about helping you out. He told me to give him a call," and I did. And I called this guy in Florida, and he tells me, "Well, you know what? I was born in Panama, so I know exactly where you were born. I was born in the same place. I know all your neighborhoods. And as a matter of fact, my cousin lives about 2 streets down the road. I'm gonna tell him to go by your house." And about a week later, I had a knock on my door, and the gentleman comes in and he goes, "Hey, my cousin Ted. Ted told me to come and see you, and to talk with you." And he came in and sat down and he read Ted's story about all the accomplishments Ted had. Ted was an engineer and was a motorcycle racer and all the stuff that he had done before he lost his sight due to an accident, and all the stuff he had done afterwards. He was a Special Olympic skiing champion and gold medalist and this and that. And then at the end of the day, he goes, "Well, I'll tell you what, let me get hold with Ted and we'll see what we can do with you." And 2 weeks later, I have another knock on the door, and it's Bert. Bert's Ted's son. He came back and goes, "Lewis, I got your box. Ted's in your box." And inside that box was the JAWS screen reader program, an Accent essay external box, and all the training cassettes I needed to learn a computer again. And he goes, "Here, Teddy sent you this." He says he's very happy to be able to help. And then I started corresponding with Ted after that. I'd record micro cassettes. Back in the day when they had the little teeny micro cassette recorders, and I recorded back. So Bert came back. Bert happened to also be the director of the Panama Canal Company, the IT department in the Panama Canal Company. So he was way up there in the Panama Canal Authority. And he brought his engineers. They hooked up all my software and all the peripherals that my brother had left me, and they made that thing talk to me. And I had WordPerfect on there and Lotus, and I learned and I taught myself how to use a computer. About 6 months later, I applied for a job with the military again, and I was reinstated working for the 94 Signal Company as a telephone operator. I worked there 6 years until they closed the canal down. And the United States closed all bases, and I had to come. Of all places, I ended up in Georgia. One of my good friends, my supervisor, had moved to Georgia, and he said, "Come on up here. I live over here in Warner Robins. There's an air base here. Stay with me. See if you can get a job on the base. It'll be a snap. You already work for the Department of Defense. Hey, come on up." And I did. Me and my wife. We didn't have any children. We sold all our stuff, boxed some other stuff, sent it in the mail. And we came up here on 1999, a couple of months before they shut down the canal. And I lived in Water Rounds about a year and a half looking for work, and I couldn't find work. A lot of job interviews. I did start doing some contract work for the vocational rehab services, teaching people how to use blind people how to use computers. And then one day my counselor says, "Lewis, there's a little place down in Bainbridge, Georgia, and I don't know, they hire people who are blind, but I don't know if, with all this your background and your experience and your education. I don't know if you want to do that. And I said, yes, I do. I don't care. I was ready to wash dishes. I was ready to clean, but I didn't care. I just wanted to be able to work it. And I wanted to have that feeling. My wife, when we got home, she had to go to work because I didn't have a job. I had Social Security, SSI. First time I ever applied for, for assistance from the government. And then, I went to get some food stamps, and they gave me $24 a month because my wife was not a citizen. So here I'm living off of $500 off my savings, and trying to find a job. Barely getting any job. She had to go flip hamburgers at a mall, and we were married 1992, came up 99, 2000. We didn't have any children. We had having difficulty having kids, and God and behold, here we are with me without a job, and I'm sitting at home, cooking and cleaning while she's working, and boom, she gets pregnant. The Lord have mercy. And and she had a bad pregnancy because my daughter attached in the wrong place, and it was a high risk pregnancy, so she had to quit her job. And here we're thinking about what we're gonna do, and all of a sudden, the good Lord answered my prayer and says, "There's a place down in Bainbridge. You want to go down there and sew?" And I said, "Yes, I do." So she wasn't able to make that first trip with me. That was in October of 2000, and I came down and I toured this plant here in Bainbridge. And one of the things that struck me was the folks here. The folks were happy and excited, and I said, you know what? If they can be happy here, why can't I? That was in October, November, on Thanksgiving Day, with a couple of volunteers from the Perry office, VR office. I was heading down south to Bainbridge, Georgia. Doesn't that sound like a country music song? Heading down south on my no, it's so weird. I was in my little red pickup truck pulling a U-Haul, had $50 in my wallet, and I told one day I'm gonna write a country song about that, And then I started thinking, well, that red truck is a Nissan, it's not a Chevy or a Ford, so there went my country song. But anyways, I ended up here in Bainbridge, Georgia, in this little town called Bainbridge, and the rest is history. I came in here and I looked around, and I started seeing the things that the blind people were going through, and the things that I could, I could either complain about how bad things were, or I could make a difference. And one of the things I saw is that blind people would have to go home to get someone to read their mail or something like that. And I went and told the director, and I told him, hey, if you give me the tools, I can teach these folks how to use computers. Back then, we only had 2 computers in this plant. And he goes, you sure? I go, yeah, that's my background. I can teach these folks how to computer. And he allowed me, he got the computers, and he allowed me to set up the training module and all the training material. And I started training people, all blind people and sighted people, how to use computers. So I trained over 126 people at this plant how to use JAWS and all that stuff. And Zoom tags and the sighted people how to maneuver through windows and be able to do tasks that the basic simple tasks, the beginning tasks that they could later use their eyes to do on their own. A lot of those folks right now are supervisors. I have 2 supervisors that taught computers that are out there. A lot of the blind people that I did teach are either not here or in either some kind of upward position in an office. But I did that, and I thought to myself, I remember when Ted did that for me. He sent me that box of tools for me, and he told me, Lewis, these are the tools that are going to open doors for you. As far as you take them, that's up to you. And I always told my students the same story. Because I always tell you what Ted told me. These are the tools that will open doors for you, and it's up to you how far you want to take it. And just so people out there who don't know who I'm talking about, Ted. I'm talking about Ted Hunter. Ted Hunter is the one who invented JAWS, the screen reader. Back when I met him, he was struggling. They're a struggling company. He had not gone to Windows. So when he sent me that software, he said, "Listen, I'm not rich, but I think these are tools that will help you out." So I have a lot to be thankful to Ted and his cousin for what they did to me. And I see Ted every July when I go down to the zoning reunion. We have a reunion in Orlando where all the folks from Panama get together, and I see him, and I always make sure I give him a hug, him and his wife, and make sure that let him know that I'm really thankful for what he did for me. He didn't know who I was. I mean, he was a total stranger. So was his cousin, and he gave me that opportunity to be where I'm at today. Um, so I did the learning center, and then I went and I was working production, and they allowed me to come uh, to take a lot of classes with NIB, the National Industries for the Blind. Had some leadership courses and some business management courses. I took all those, and next thing I know, I'm in the corporate office helping Miss Betty do recruiting, employment relations, recruiting. I did that for a while, and in 2015, I was I was awarded by National Industries for the Blind Milton Samuelson Career Achievement Award, which for me was a big thing. That I have awards on the wall. That I've won throughout my years working for the military, and while I was here at GIB, I was nominated for Employer of the Year here and there about 6 times. Um, and I have been able to travel all over the United States because of that. But winning the actual national award was a big thing because that only told me not that I was good, but that those people like Ted Henner and my wife and other people that I met along the way, um, Professor Lopez at the Center for Adults who gave me the benefit of and allowed me to do things a lot of things in my training as a blind person. That those people, it was those are the people that award is for, not for me. So one of the things that I always say is I'm here because of people that have been able that have given me that opportunity and have seen in me that I may have a little bit of potential to do something. I'm not the smartest or the best or the giftedest, but I always say if what I do can open doors for other people with a lot more talent and a lot more, then that's all I care. Um, I will never be able to pay Teddy back for what the things I call him Teddy, but but I'll never be able to pay him back. You make a check for a computer and for software, but for what he did for me, so what I do is I try to pay forward, and anything that I do when a phone rings and someone's on the other line saying I'm trying to find a job, I'm blind, and I sit there because I remember when I was that person on the other side of the line looking for that help. So I make sure I listen to them and I try to give them the best advice of how to handle that and where to go and who to talk to, and at the end of the day, if GIB is one thing they want to do, that's fine. So now I'm the director here at GIB, one of the directors. I'm a services director. I have the services department where I have two call centers. I'm over the warehouse side on Robins Air Force Base, and always looking for new contracts where I can bring talented blind people in and to do services or work on the plant. So um, I've had a very long and interesting triple life. I had to reinvent yourself. But that's the thing about being blind. You know, I tell people blindness. The way I view that is that, and I tell people, use your strength to leverage your challenges into your greatest asset. And to me, my blindness was my challenge, but it's also my greatest asset. Because if it wasn't for my blindness, I would not be where I'm at today. I would not be able to travel all over the country and represent GIB and represent NIB, meet all the legislators and all the things that I do when I deal with public policy, going to Washington D.C., travel all over the country, talk about GIB, talk about NIB, talk about opportunities, and just talking about in general about things that people who are blind who think that I went blind or I won't be able to do anything else. That's not true. I tell people, open the door and look outside. That all belongs to you. Just a matter of you wanting it bad enough and go and get it. Just like Ted told me, here's your tools. How far do you want to take it? And so for me, my blindness is my greatest asset. And just two things. I like to run my mouth. If you can tell, I haven't shut up yet. I like to run my mouth. So and one of my weaknesses is mobility. As I have gotten older, mobility has not been, you don't get around too much here in Bainbridge. There's no sidewalks, so you kind of depend on people. So running my mouth and traveling has always been beneficial because you get to meet people. Sir, do you need some help? Sure, and then you get to meet a friend because that person helping you can talk to them and they're gonna go help somebody else. Next time they see another blind person, I remember I met Lewis, and I've made a lot of friends like that on planes and at airports and all places, because it's all about networking. So, but that's kind of like my story of my blindness and in my experience. I always tell people I am the end result of the vocational rehab system here in Georgia. I know there's a lot of people who have had challenges with them, but for me, my experience with them, from when I got here in 1999 to where I'm at here in 2018. When I got here in '99, when I moved down to Bainbridge, I just had a couple of dollars in my wallet, and they started me out with paying for my house and utilities and stuff like that to where I'm at today as a director. It's because of those folks at VR who had the passion and for what they do, and saw in me that someone that they were willing to give up their Thanksgiving to bring me down here and my family and my wife, so that I have the opportunity to bring in a check. My first check I remember was for a couple of days. It was like for $24, and that was like one of those happy days of your life, because I'm finally making a paycheck again. So for me, that was very emotional day. So a lot of emotional days in my life.
Yes, a lot. And I want to thank you for sharing your fascinating story. And I think it's a great lesson on paying it forward and helping others.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Appreciate it.